Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the gentleman from Kentucky for yielding me the customary 30 minutes, and I yield myself such time as I may consume.
You are recognized.
So, Mr. Speaker, it's great to see you again. How are you? It's been a while. You look terrific. We haven't had votes in, 5 legislative days? All because some Republican members decided to throw a temper tantrum last week on the House floor, wanting to rehash legislation that was passed the week before. So what we saw was essentially a fight between the right wing and the extreme right wing. I mean, what the hell is going on here? With each passing week, it becomes more and more obvious that the Republican Party is completely out of touch with what everyday people care about in this country. We're bringing a new rule to the floor that incorporates the bills that we were supposed to do last week and adds an additional bill to make it easier to kill people. I'm told that the Republicans now have the votes to pass this rule, but the question is, what was the deal? Or better yet, what was the secret deal to convince the Republicans who were problematic last week to get along this week? Reading the press, we see that members of the Freedom Caucus are saying they have this deal on power sharing. I'm not quite sure what that means, and power sharing with the Speaker and the extreme right wing. Is that the deal? And then we hear from the Speaker that there's no deal on anything. So I don't know what the truth is, and maybe my friend can enlighten us at some point what the truth is. But my Republicans friends like to say that this place should be run like a business. Well, if they really believe that, then this place should be out of business, because this is not the way Congress should be run. This is not the way you run a democracy. This is ridiculous. You know, Democrats have worked tirelessly to try to lower costs for people, bring jobs back from China, rebuild our country, fight pollution, and keep our community safe. And Republicans, what do they stand for? Well, forgive me if I say I'm not entirely sure, because right now the only thing I have seen so far since they took over is dysfunction and disarray. Republicans began this Congress by wasting a week fighting with each other about who would be Speaker. Now we're 5 months in, and they've enacted 5 laws, 1 a month. Boy, what an achievement. Even Democrats and President Trump were able to enact 21 laws at this point. And now the far-right fringe of the Republican Party, the same fringe that demanded Speaker McCarthy give them all of his power, has succeeded in even dictating to him what bills he can and can't bring to the House floor. This is important, and I want the American people to understand who is in charge here right now. It's not the Speaker of the House, it's not Kevin McCarthy, it's the far right of the far right. I mean, we have sitting members of the Republican conference right now openly advocating for civil war. These are the people calling the shots. Are you kidding me? In what world should the 11 most extreme people in the Republican Party get to dictate the entire agenda of a legislative body that represents 332 million people? What are we doing here, Mr. Speaker? We have smoke from wildfires clogging up our air. Scientists are telling us we need to do more on climate change, and yet we are passing messaging bills about gas stoves. By the way, that's not even me calling them messaging bills. It's a Republican saying that. And I quote, this is a Republican, "We do not need to leave D.C. early because messaging bills are not coming to the House floor." That was Congresswoman Boebert last week. Or how about this one, and I quote, "When we pass things around here that are messaging bills that don't do anything, is it really a loss that we aren't passing anything?" End quote. I mean, their own members are saying that the bills that they are passing do nothing. That we're essentially they're just playing a messaging game. Is this really the best we can do with all the challenges that we face in this country and around the world? Meanwhile, our constituents are begging us, they're pleading with us to do something about gun violence in this country. And what do Republicans do? How do they respond? By bringing to the floor a bill that makes it easier for the next mass shooter to kill more people. It is sick. 9 people outside a bar in Dayton in 2019. 10 people, including a police officer at a grocery store in Boulder in 2021. 5 people in an LGBTQ nightclub in Colorado Springs in 2022. 6 people, including children, at a school in Nashville just a few months ago. What do they all have in common? They were all killed by mass shooters who used stabilizing braces. And by the way, the ATF rule that the Republicans are trying to overturn, contrary to what they say, doesn't even make stabilizing braces illegal. It doesn't ban them. All it does is it says that you need to register braces because they are used in a lot of mass shootings. But for Republicans, any amount of common sense gun safety regulation is too much. Why? Why? Because the NRA says so. Our kids are being slaughtered, for God's sake. Does anyone care? Do my Republican colleagues care at all that America's parents stay up wondering whether our kids will be the next one shot at a school or at a mall or at a movie theater or at their own graduation? People come up to me all the time and they ask me, why can't Democrats and Republicans just work together? I tell them I wish we could. There was a time when we did. I say to them, go online and Google the bills that Republicans are bringing to the floor and ask yourself why Republicans oppose background checks on a gun accessory that mass shooters use to kill people. Ask yourself if it's right that this bill was introduced by a Republican member of Congress, and you got to love this, who owns a gun store and makes millions of dollars by selling guns and these types of gun accessories that mass shooters use to kill people. Ask yourself if it makes sense that the only reason this bill is even on the floor is because Speaker McCarthy isn't even in charge of the House schedule anymore. The far, far, far right is. The craziest thing is this rule was inspired by guidance published under the Trump administration. Now let me repeat that. Even the Trump administration thought it was necessary to further regulate stabilizing braces. And I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I agree. If you want to know why we can't have real action when it comes to gun safety, follow the money. Follow the money. In the last decade, the NRA has spent more than $100 million to help elect Republicans who will support their extreme agenda. Follow the money. It's no surprise that the far right is demanding this bill, but it's a shame. How many more mass shootings need to happen? How many more kids need to die before my Republican colleagues pull their heads out of the sand and realize that the NRA's blood money is not worth the damage that is being done to our country? I wish I were wrong, Mr. Speaker, but sadly the cowardice and the moral bankruptcy on the other side of the aisle seems to know no bounds. Between the new concept of power sharing in the House, which really just means that the Speaker is going to have to keep a tiny minority of extremist members happy for the House to be able to function, and the fact that their party's front runner for the 2024 presidential election is being indicted with very serious charges for the second time this afternoon, I'm sorry to say that the Republican Party is a train wreck, and it doesn't bode well for what's to come. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I reserve my time.
The gentleman reserves.